So let's say you want to support unofficial fan translations of your RenPy game, but you don't want to keep changing the code every time someone makes a new Russian, German, Danish, Dutch translation for you. What do? Well, the code comes in three parts. First of all, I should note that we're going to be using the NotoSans font by Google. Out of the box, NotoSans supports Greek, Cyrillic, and Latin alphabets, and has a wide support of languages. The first part of our code goes in the init Python block. You could put this in your script file or wherever you have an init Python block. We're going to be importing OS, and we're going to be calling the function getAvailableTranslations. This code will be available on my GitHub, and I will provide a link in the video description. What this function does is it looks for folders inside the game/tl directory, which is where translations are usually held. It's going to return a list of all of those folder names. Now, it's pretty liberal in its matching criteria. It's going to find matches for every folder that does not start with a period and is not equal to none, which is the default language of your game. The second part of our code is going to be inserted into your screens.rpy file. Locate your preferences menu and add this VBox. This is for a section called languages. There's going to be one text button that is for English, assuming that your default language is English. And the second part is going to be a for loop. This is where our function comes in. It's going to grab the output of this function and list it as separate text buttons. And then this text here is just a little explainer for would-be fan translators to put the translations in the game TL directory in order for their language to appear on the preferences menu. And then the third and final part, we're going to go into GUI.rpy and we're going to change define GUI.text font equals Deja Vu Sans to default GUI text font NotoSans regular.ttf. As an example, here's what my game/TL directory looks like. There's a folder for French, a folder for German, a folder for Russian, and obviously the default none folder, which just contains common.rpym and common.rpymc. So we're going to go into the RenPy SDK and we're going to launch the game and we're going to go to preferences and we're going to see that if we go back to English, we can see that there's an option for French, German, and Russian. What happens if I delete the Russian, German, and French folders and Alt-R to restart the game? We go to preferences and we can see that there's only an English option now. So how do fan translators get their fan translations into your game? Well, first, you need to do an action on your part. Go into the RenPy SDK, go to Generate Translations, and let's say we're going to have a made-up language called and we're going to click the checkbox that says Generate Empty Strings for Translations, unless you don't want to, I mean, your preference. And we're going to hit Generate Translations. It's going to think for a bit, and it finishes. And we're going to go back into the game TL directory, and we're going to see that fishville is now a translation. Of course, if we open up script.rpy, we're going to see that all of these translations are currently empty strings, as we just selected earlier. This is up to the fan translators to come up with translations for the script. So what you would do is you would zip this file, 7-zip, add to archive, and we're going to create a zip file. And you're going to upload this to your itch.io page or some official channel so that people know it's legit and it's coming from the original author. Fans who want to produce their own translations would download the zip and go into the script.rpy and the other RPY files you have and then create their own translations for each line and then save them. And then once they're all done, they would just host it on their own website, or perhaps they would message you and you could put it on your itch.io page, and then people could download that zip and then unzip it and then put it in the TL directory. So if we go back into the game, we launch it from the SDK, and we go to preferences, we can see that Effortlessly is a supported language, but if we click on it, everything has been translated to empty string, which is not ideal. So in order to reverse that, we could either fish out the English button, or we could hit delete persistent from the RenPy SDK. So to recap, the first part of this code goes in your script file or wherever you host your init Python block. The second bit goes in your screens.rpy, and the third bit goes into the GUI.rpy file.